Welcome back to the Mr. Big Facts podcast. Now, it's been a while since I dropped a little video. Now, guys, I want to talk about something real quick, okay? Now, this is a legitimate question that we have to ask ourselves, okay? Now, on the heels of, the rise of guys like Tariq, Nasheed, and the whole F.B.A. and ADOS and all that stuff, enough respect to those people. Fight for what you got to fight for. At the end of the day, as long as our skin is black, we the same. The struggle may be different, the culture may be different, but we are the same. And the fact that, you have these so-called snake oil salesmen and these pulpit pimps is what I call them, that's out here trying to divide and conquer the culture by design for monetary gain, that's disgusting. But I'd like to ask you guys a question, man. This is a real question, right? Now, a lot of people I know, black Americans, F.B.A.s, whatever you want to call them, they're not in the loop of what's going on with this whole riff and this whole Africans versus black Americans, Caribbeans versus black Americans, because, it really don't exist. It's in the heads of certain people, The fact that he would go on a limb to say that, Caribbean and African people come here to undermine the so-called F.B.A. black American is asinine. Now, when those groups come to America, these groups are on survival mode, hustle mode, These are people that grew up in the most poorest parts of the world, the parts that we watch and we laugh and we say, wow, look at them, they eat all these weird types of food, they drink milk from the goats, they just eat fruits and vegetables because, they don't get a good square meal, they don't eat good breakfast, they don't eat eggs and bacon and all that stuff like we do, so, we look down upon them. It's funny that we do that, but when they get here, we get mad that they're on survival and hustle mode and they don't got time for the bullshit. See, there's an old saying, man, when you don't know what you got till it's gone. When you're used to something, you kind of take it for granted. Now, that's human nature. That is what it is. When you get used to something, you take it for granted. So, is the so-called F.B.A. black American taking America for granted? Now I'm looking at all the rhetoric and the banter and the talk and the disrespect that's coming out of the so-called F.B.A. ADOS movement towards the immigrants, the black immigrants in particular. And I'm like, wow, where's this coming from? Because these people come from poor countries, as I said, and they are on hustle mode. They're not like the so-called F.B.A. black American that takes America for granted. They're talking about, they come here and they take all our resources and they go to our colleges. And you guys, come on, man. You're being very selfish. It's like a spoiled kid, Now, I told you how most of the racism in America started, Do your history when poor whites were suffering and they were broke and hungry and starving, couldn't put food on the table for their family. The elite said, basically, the middle class is a buffer zone to protect the rich, the elite. They went and they told the poor whites that their problem is the even poorer blacks. And this is why they're not getting anywhere. This is why they're not getting ahead in life, because these poor black people are your problems. And this is the reason why stuff like segregation and all that shit happened. The movie Birth of a Nation, all that stuff. Right? Now, remember, the so-called F.B.A. black American has been taught and brought up under white supremacy rule, under the master, the teachings of the master. We are the people that always say, oh, they took our lineage, they took away our names, we don't know who we are, that's why we carry these names now. Even me having Caribbean lineage, I still have a European name. Okay? Now, in Africa, they have their natural names, but people in the Caribbean islands went through almost the same thing the so-called F.B.A.s went through with slavery. That's why everybody in the Caribbean has these European names. Okay? So you got to understand that before you start judging, before you start thinking that we're so different. Now, you got to understand, a lot of the so-called F.B.A.s and ADOs, or whatever the case may be, they're mad. You know, the snake oil salesmen and the spokesmen and the spokeswomen, they're mad that these blacks from different cultures, countries come to America and they take full advantage of the American system, while the so-called native blacks are steady complaining. And, you know, the fight for reparations is real. You know, keep it up. But that doesn't mean that you're going to sit on your ass and just wait for a check. You have to keep it moving. You have to keep pushing. Okay? You have to acknowledge that the black American has a serious problem. The black American is suffering from self-hatred. And when these Caribbean people come to America and these African people come to America and they have their flag, that's all they really got, because that's all they know. Okay? Now, it's unfortunate what took place with F.B.A.'s black Americans, okay? With white supremacy, with redlining, with segregation, all that stuff made y'all hate the country that you live in. This is why most Americans do not wave the American flag. They don't support the American flag, the Constitution, the anthem, none of it, because it's all, you know, embroidered, and it's all, you know, it's all involved with racism and segregation and, you know, white supremacy. So this is why a lot of so-called black American F.B.A.s, they don't acknowledge the American flag. It's unfortunate. So in that case, when they see the immigrant and the foreigners come to America and they're waving their flags, it seems like the so-called black American F.B.A.s, they're upset. They don't like that. You know, and my question to you guys is, do you want them to wave the American flag? Because you do not wave the American flag. You do not support the American flag. You do not support the Constitution, and you do not support the American military, because it's been less than, you know, nice, for a lack of a better term, to black people. Talking about when blacks went to war, came back and got treated like shit. So the black Americans, you guys do not represent or wave the American flag. Because you got to understand, these people come from a strong heritage. You know, they have a little bit of culture. They do things a little bit different. They have to wave their flags. And you cannot be hating because you see a flag. It doesn't matter. They just have to wave their flag. That's where they're from. And I feel as if the so-called F.B.A. black American is somehow, you know, a little jealous of these people because they have a second home. They have a country to go back to. They always say that. We don't have anywhere to go to. But let me tell you something. Coming from the lineage of Caribbean parents, family, I'm going to tell you something. You guys are welcomed in the Caribbean, okay? You guys are looked up to in the Caribbean. So stop with the hate and the talk of we don't like you and the foreigners don't respect us. And no, you guys are complaining too much. You guys are so tender. You're tenderized. You have a self-hate complex going on, inferiority complex, and it's not the fault of the so-called immigrant. It's what was drilled into your heads. It's oppression. It's white supremacy. It's what happened in slavery. And this is the reason why you're perpetrating that on others. This is the reason why you're believing that everybody that comes to America and just goes to their little own corner, that they're somehow hateful of you. No. Now let me tell you something. You got to understand what we're dealing with here, okay? We're dealing with people that are full of excuses. They want to blame everybody and everything else for what's going on. They're blaming the immigrants for not racism, I'm sorry, for the lack of, you know, movement in the reparation movement. No pun intended. They're blaming the black immigrants now. They've blamed the white man. They said the white man owe us. This kind of rhetoric was not going around 10 years ago. All of a sudden now, it's going around. Now, let me tell you something. Think about this very well, okay? Think about this, guys. When immigrants come to this country, Italian immigrants, right? Remember them? They separated. The Italians lived in places like Bensonhurst and what do you call it? Bay Ridge, and they had Brooklyn and all that stuff in New York, right? Different parts was Irish, and the Irish, they had their different foods, they had their different cultures, they had different dances. The Italians had the mob. You know, you got to understand the cultures are different, but they were all white people, okay? Then you had the American white, which had their tradition, right? Then you had the Scottish. Then you had the Polish. Remember, they all had their different sections, their different cultures. You have to respect it. This is what it's about. So the fact that these people, these provocateurs, are claiming that somehow every black that comes to America has to somehow affiliate with the so-called F.B.A. black Americans and just melt in a big old melting pot, they don't understand culture. People have cultures. Mexicans have their own culture. Puerto Ricans, you cannot call them a Mexican. You cannot call them Dominican. They will get upset. Dominicans, they're different. They eat different types of food. Cubans, they're all different, but they all subscribe to the Hispanic heritage. So you have to respect the fact that immigrants that are black come to this country and they subscribe to who they know. I told you I know Africans. Some are from Rwanda. Some are from Togo. Some are from Ethiopia. They mostly will talk to each other because, you know, the group is small, but they still separate by language, by culture, by the foods. You click to who you know. You click to who you know. So this is the reason why there's separation. But the so-called F.B.A. black American feels some type of way when somebody, say African or Caribbean, comes here and they somehow start affiliating mostly with their own people because they understand each other, the accents, the language. This is how it goes. But, you know, most of them, they're willing to, you know, affiliate with the Americans because everybody loves American culture. Okay, American culture leads the world. There's no doubt about it. American black culture is strong, powerful. It's running everything. So immigrants come and they affiliate. See, the problem is a lot of y'all don't understand that the immigrant, black immigrant, does not, most of them, their parents, and this stuff came from the 60s and the 70s. The parents was the ones that came with the blacks are lazy, this, that, and the third, that this, that, and the, because remember, they don't have the power to control the media. FBAs and black Americans never had the power to control industry and media. So the images that were portrayed on TV, on movies, on about black Americans were distributed all over the world. And it looked bad because guess what? People were like, no, I hope this is say it ain't so. That we just killing each other in America and we just gangsters with our pants on the ground and, you know, and we shooting each other and we just that's all we are. That's the only image that was portrayed around the world. And I could attest to it. So people, immigrants, black, that are coming here, they never wanted to associate with that because that's trouble. They didn't grow up like that. So when they see that on TV, they believed it. So they were bamboozled. And they believed that this is all that the black American FBA was good for, was about crime, drugs. Remember, you guys know that we always talk about the fact that they always showed negative image of blacks on TV. Right? This is part of it. So this is the image that was distributed around the world, and this is how some people formed their own notions. And this is how you got the Caribbean and the Africans that came here, and they said, we don't want to affiliate with that type of behavior. They didn't know better because the so-called white supremacists and the so-called white man, they're master manipulators, and they know what they're doing. So they were giving out these bad images all over the world. They control media, they control radio. So they had the power to make you look good or bad. Like Denzel said, They got the power to destroy you or build you. So this is what it was. So just to break it down, they thought, these people thought, most of them, that you come to America and all the blacks were so fucking poor and so fucked up in the inner cities that if you go around them, you know, you're going to get in trouble. You're going to turn into one of them. And these people aspired to be better coming from poor countries. And it's the reason why a lot of so-called like immigrant blacks separated. They didn't want to be associated with negativity. And like I said, even without that separation, cultures separate based on culture, based on what they have in common. So don't be mad when these people come and separate into their own little groups. I'm going to keep it 100 with you. Having parents and family and being Caribbean, okay, coming up, you don't want to be associated with ghetto shit. You don't want to be associated with the so-called hood mentality. It's no good. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that because you get no love. You get no respect. You get no woman. You don't get the right women. You don't get the right dates. You don't get to do what you want. You don't get money. You don't get respect. Okay? And this is what's been going on with the so-called F.B.A. Black American culture. The negativity caused people to look at you. And the funny thing about it is, whenever a black comes to the country from any other country, they fall right into the category of a black American, unless they keep their culture very strong, keep their accent, keep their keep everything within their culture, you know, in the community. You know, they separate to an extent, but you know, we all black at the end of the day. But I said that to say that the F.B.A. so-called and the immigrant have a lot in common. The fact that, you know, they have culture from a different country doesn't mean that they hate the F.B.A. or they don't want to be associated. They just, speaking from somebody that, you know, is of foreign descent, you know what I'm saying? Foreign family, you know, been around the world shit. I could tell you from straight up, a lot of them, especially the older ones, they don't want to be associated with the nonsense. But if you check the youth out today, yeah, they're with it. They're with all the bullshit. But the older folks didn't want that for their kids. So this is why they separated. Because, you know, you get put into that bracket. You get put into that bracket and, you know, it's a wrap. So we got the name calling, you know, it is what it is, but there's nobody out here on the internet of the Spanish, Hispanic, or the Caucasian race that's out here crying and disrespecting other people of their ethnicity. There's no other white broadcaster or whatever on here talking about white people from a different country. That's a code. They're not going to do that. But because black people are fucked up in the game, assed out, trying to make a come up, it's no holds barred. It's anything goes to get the bag. And this is where we're losing ourselves. We're losing ourselves because of slavery and because the fact that we've never really came up financially, and we're at the bottom of the totem pole, and even the Hispanics are passing blacks, you know what I'm saying? Because of that, we're willing to just jump out the window on anybody. We have no decorum anymore. We're just gonna go, you're this, and you know, like Tariq, how he insults Africans and he calls people's kids and family oxtails and jollof, or whatever that jollof, I don't know what that is. Oxtail, yeah, I eat that shit. That shit is good. But that's what I'm trying to say. He insults people. This is how you know that we're in bad shape, dude. When you have a grown so-called intelligent man that's disrespecting other black cultures, calling them names, telling them they live in huts, and putting that out there for the world, giving that negative image of us because of the fact or the perceived let me get a word, perceived incoming reparation. Like I said, I ain't the sharpest tool, but I'm going to try to speak as best as I can. So because of that, because of poverty, because of how they did us dirty, we resort to hating each other. We act as if we're the ones that put us in a situation. The Africans didn't do that. They didn't, slave anybody or create Jim Crow. The Caribbeans didn't do segregation and redlining and whatever. They come here and they try to make it. They got to stay straight and narrow. I know what I'm telling you. These people they don't hate anybody. They don't hate black Americans. They just have to stay on the straight and narrow, because remember, any false move, they gonna get rid of them. This one opportunity, I don't understand. For people that come here, black immigrants and immigrants all over, this one chance they get. Some people come here on a fucking visa, for fucking a month visa, and they gotta do what they gotta do. I'm telling you, I know, I seen it. So they have to do what they gotta do, and it doesn't mean that they hate you. They have to build themselves, because if they make the wrong move, remember, black Americans, F.B.A, y'all got birthright. Y'all can't get deported to nowhere. So these people have to walk on eggshells until they get their citizenship. So don't be mad at them, and don't throw them all under the bus because you see a couple people that you believe is against the so-called F.B.A.'s plight to get reparations, because you see them on the news, and you such an expert, you could trace their lineage and find out who their parents was, and because of that, you would say, oh well, they're against us. They don't want us to get reparation. These immigrants that they put into places of power. But you got to understand, y'all people was the first. F.B.A.s and blacks were the first to get indoctrinated into government and have positions. So what did y'all do? What did your people do for you? What did the F.B.A.s that were given positions in government, what did they do to help the black Americans plight for reparations and equality in America? So you claim the immigrants just came. So how long have they been here undermining the so-called F.B.A. black American? How long? So you can't play the blame game. The blame game. What about all these heads? These guys that walked with Martin Luther King and got knocked out on the bridge and beat up by the police, or whatever the case may be. What about these guys? What about these Claibornes and John Lewises? What did they do? What did they do? Because you have a couple anchors on news that you can trace their lineage and, oh, they're immigrants. Oh, their family's not from here. They're undermining you, right? They don't have power to do that. And remember, when you give somebody a paycheck, ain't no telling what they gonna do. You see what celebrities do. Money is the root of money. The love of money is the root of all evil. So let me tell you something. Dog eat dog is what it is. All men and women for themselves. It don't matter where you from. Okay? So don't blame no immigrants for your problems. Work hard. Try to get it done. Unity. Stop trying to take money from people and then you on the internet trolling. Do something with that money. Show them that you're doing something with that money. We don't want to see documentaries and all that nonsense. We don't care about that. That does not push the black agenda. A documentary and a movie about black people fighting white people and slavery and all that, once a slave, all that fucking bullshit. That is not helping the plight of the black American. We have to unify. Stop robbing the people. Stop taking people's money and not delivering shit. Because we've become a people where memes and roastings and jokes, and that's all we're about. Everything's a joke. They put the veil over our eyes, and we're here just laughing and giggling on Twitter and TikTok all day, and don't have our eyes on the prize. So this is what's going on. This is what I want to say. Y'all have a good one. Peace out.